What is up guys, it's Cal, and in this video I'm going to be showing you everything Survival Hunter that is on the Battle for Azeroth beta, since beta just came out. I'm going to be talking about their baseline abilities as well as their talents. Then I'm going to go over pets for a short bit since Survival Hunters will still be using pets. But if you want to watch a more in-depth guide to the pet changes for hunters, then watch my Beast Mastery video or the separate video I made dedicated to the subject. Now I do want to mention that Survival Hunters do seem somewhat incomplete in their current state on the beta, but beta did just come out, so I'll most likely be revisiting this topic towards the end of the beta when the expansion is much closer. On top of that, this video is not meant to tell you which talents do the most DPS or if Survival Hunters are better than the other two specs in DPS. It's way too early for that. This is merely showing you their current state on the beta. So let's start off talking about Survival Hunters' baseline abilities. Now these are all of the baseline abilities for Survival Hunters. There are some that are new and some that are returning, but it definitely seems pruned down quite a bit. So let's go through them. Disengage, still staying the same, 20-second cooldown, leaps backwards. Exhilaration is the same, but remember you will not have your artifact weapon anymore, so you can't easily reduce the cooldown of exhilaration by killing something. Turtles, staying the same. Misdirect. Aspect of the cheetah, still staying the same. You get Coordinated Assault, which is a 2-minute cooldown, and it's pretty much like Bestial Wrath. You and your pet attack as one, increasing all damage you both deal by 20% for 20 seconds. While Coordinated Assault is active, Kill Command's chance to reset is increased by 25%. That second part of that, I'll explain it in a minute when I get to Kill Command. But yeah, that's essentially Survival Hunter's Bestial Wrath. Then there's Aspect of the Eagle. Aspect of the Eagle is a thing, but it's definitely getting changed. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown, and it increases the range of your Raptor Strike to 40 yards for 15 seconds. Essentially what they're doing with Survival Hunters is they're trying to make them more ranged, because in Legion, you know, they made them strictly melee, essentially. Well, they're trying to make Survival Hunters now a hybrid of both of them. So every 1.5 minutes for 15 seconds, you can be completely ranged if you feel like it. You still have pet utility. Intimidation is becoming baseline. Now what Intimidation does, if you're not aware, is it stuns your target for 5 seconds, 1 minute cooldown. The reason that they're making this baseline is because Binding Shot, which was Hunter's really only stun, which is a talent, well, it's no longer going to become a stun, and I'll talk about what it's going to become when I talk about the talents. Flare, staying the exact same. Harpoon is staying the exact same. Now Wildfire Bomb hurls a bomb at the target, exploding for some fire damage in a cone, so it's like a frontal AoE cone, coating the enemies with a fire dot over 5 seconds. So there's a new dot there, and that is a 40-yard range, because pay attention to these ranges. You get Serpent Sting back, which 20 focus, fires a poison-tipped arrow at a target dealing that much nature damage instantly, and then some nature damage over 10.8 seconds. 10.8, that's an interesting number. But yeah, that is also a 40-yard range. And just to be clear, you still will be using a staff as of right now, or a two-handed whatever, polearm. As of right now, you still can do Serpent Sting even without a melee weapon equipped. It's kind of like, you know, what is it, Outlaw Rogue's Pistol Shot. You don't actually use a ranged weapon, but you can still use Pistol Shot. Anyways, Survival Hunters are getting Kill Command, but it's different than Beast Mastery's Kill Command. So this is a 50-yard range, it's a pet attack, and it does a little bit of damage, and has a 25% chance to immediately reset its cooldown with a 5-point-whatever second cooldown, which is reduced by your haste. Coordinated Assault brings that up to 50%, and it generates 15 focus. So Kill Command is your generator. Your generator is on a cooldown. Granted, it is a short cooldown and has a chance of just not being a cooldown at all. Now this Kill Command obviously does less damage than the Beast Mastery one, but it does some damage, and as I said before, it's your focus generator. Raptor Strike is pretty much unchanged from live. It just costs 30 focus instead of 25, and it is melee range. And remember, Aspect of the Eagle does allow Raptor Strike to be used from 40 yards away. Wing Clip is staying the exact same, 30 focus, reduces the target's movement speed, and Muzzle, which is your interrupt, is staying the same. Remember, it is melee range. Aspect of the Eagle does not increase its range. And then Freezing Trap, Tar Trap, and Feign Death are staying the exact same. Now let's take a look at the passives for Survival Hunters, which this is the part I was talking about, which seems pretty incomplete, because there's only one passive, and that's your Mastery, which is getting changed since Mongoose Bite's not going to be baseline. It's actually going to be a talent, which you'll see. What the Mastery does is that you and your pet's focus spinning abilities deal more damage. And then on top of that, the second effect to it is while your pet is active, you both regenerate 3% of your maximum health every 5 seconds. But that 3% does change with your Mastery, so that's not like a static 3%, because as we see here, let me take off my boots, which give Mastery, let's see, this ring gives Mastery, and that went down to 2.1%. I assume it probably takes a lot of Mastery to scale that second percentage, because I don't think they'd want that healing percentage to be very high. So yeah, as mentioned, that is the only passive ability. There is no Survivalist. That second effect kind of acts as survivalist because it's some passive healing. But anyways guys, that's it for all of the baseline abilities and passives. Let's talk about talents. So for the talents, the first tier, Viper's Venom. Raptor Strike has a chance to make your next Serpent Sting cost no focus and deal an additional 300% initial damage. Then there's Terms of Engagement. Harpoon deals some physical damage and then generates 40 focus over 10 seconds. And then killing an enemy resets the cooldown of Harpoon, so that one definitely seems interesting. But then there's Alpha Predator. It's a passive. Kill Command now has 2 charges and deals 30% increased damage. I think a lot of survival hunters are probably going to be angry that your focus generator has a cooldown, so at the moment, Alpha Predator definitely seems like the way to go. Now for the next tier, there's Guerrilla Tactics, which gives Wildfire Bomb 2 charges and its initial damage is increased by 100%. Hydra's Bite, passive. Serpent Sting fires at 2 additional targets near your target and its damage over time is increased by 10%. And then there's Butchery, which we've seen before. It strikes all enemies in a flurry. It's an AoE. Still has 3 charges, but it's 20 focus down from 40 focus. Now something I realized, survival hunters don't really have any viable AoE. So Butchery almost seems like you're going to have to pick it, if you want an AoE at least. But I mean, for single target fights, Guerrilla Tactics definitely seems like the choice to pick. But as I said, it's beginning beta. We're going to see where this comes in. I do definitely think that they should give survival hunters Carve, because you shouldn't have to spec into being able to have an AoE, and then Butchery should replace Carve like how it does on live. This third tier is the same for all hunter specs. Trailblazer is already in the game. Your movement speed is increased by 30% anytime you have not been attacked for 3 seconds. You know what that is. Natural Mending is new. It's a passive. Every 20 focus you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of Exhilaration by 1 second. And then Camouflage. They're still keeping Camouflage, and it does the same thing. 1 minute cooldown, you blend into the shadows, you get 2% of your health every second. So now this 4th tier, Bloodseeker, is new. It's a passive, and your kill command makes the target bleed over 8 seconds, and then you and your pet gain 10% increased attack speed for every bleeding enemy within 12 yards. So I guess if you're like in an AoE pile, just spam kill command on every enemy, and your attack speed will go through the roof. Now Steel Trap, it pretty much does the same thing. They changed the picture of it for some reason. But yeah, it does the same thing. It immobilizes an enemy for 30 seconds, and then it deals some damage, and then if you damage the target with Steel Trap on them, the immobilize effect can go away. But the main thing about it is it does not replace Freezing Trap, meaning that it's on a 30-second cooldown, down from Freezing Trap's current, 48 seconds. So there is that. Does not replace Freezing Trap. Let's see. Yep. It puts it right there. Murder of Crows. It does the exact same thing. 1 minute cooldown, 30 focus. You put it on an enemy. If that enemy dies within 15 seconds, then Murder of Crows is reset. It's not different from live. Now this next tier is the same for all hunter specs. Born to be Wild is new. Your cooldown of your Aspect of the Eagle, Aspect of the Cheetah, and Aspect of the Turtle are reduced by 20%. The other specs do not have Aspect of the Eagle in there. So there is that. Post Haste is pretty much the same from live. It is getting nerfed slightly. Your movement speed is increased by 50% for 4 seconds instead of the current 60% for 5 seconds. And then Binding Shot is definitely getting changed. It's still an arrow that you shoot on the ground, but any target who moves more than 5 yards away from it, they get rooted. They do not get stunned because they're taking out all AoE stuns from the game. So for example, like Chaos Nova for Demon Hunters, that's no longer going to AoE stun, it's going to be an AoE root. And I think Shockwaves for Warriors is doing something else. This next tier, 2 of these things look familiar. Tip of the Spear is new. Your kill command increases the damage of your next Raptor Strike by 15%, and that stacks up to 3 times. And then there's Mongoose Bite, which is getting changed slightly other than it becoming a talent. It's going to replace Raptor Strike, it's going to cost focus, it'll still deal damage on the target, and it'll still give you Mongoose Fury, which is getting changed. It will increase the damage of Mongoose Bite by 20% instead of the current 50% for 14 seconds, stacking up to 5 times instead of the current 6 times. And to my knowledge, this does not have charges to it. Yeah, it does not have charges to it. It has no cooldown. It just costs 30 focus. And then Flanking Strikes is also being changed a bit. It's going to cost no focus, it's instant, and has a 40-second cooldown, and all it does is you and your pet leap to the target, and it strikes as one, dealing a total of that much physical damage, and it generates 30 focus for you and your pet. So, you can have another focus generator if you want, but it's on a 40-second cooldown. Much longer than Kill Command's 5-ish seconds. And then for the final tier, Birds of Prey, Raptor Striking or Mongoose Bite. If you pick that, your pet's target extends the duration of Coordinated Assault by 1 second. So that's pretty neat. Wildfire Infusion, which adds on to your Wildfire Bomb, will give your Wildfire Bomb an extra effect. It has a chance of doing 1 of 3 things. There's Shrapnel Bomb, pierces the target, causing Raptor Strike and Butchery to apply bleed for 9 seconds, and that stacks up to 3 times. There's Pheromone Bombs, Kill Command has a 100% chance to reset against target Coda with pheromones, and then there's Volatile Bomb. reacts violently with poison, causing an extra explosion against enemies suffering from your Serpent Sting, and then it refreshes your Serpent Sting. So having that, plus Guerrilla Tactics, seems pretty interesting. And then there's Chakrams, which if you guys remember Glaive Toss from a while back, it's the same thing. Costs 30 focus, 20-second cooldown, you shoot out some Chakrams at a target, and then they come back to you. Any enemy in that line will get damaged, but your primary target takes 100% increased damage. So that is it for the Survival Hunter's talents. To me, I feel like Survival Hunters out of the 3 specs do need the most work currently. Or maybe not. I mean, just imagine picking Alpha Predator, Guerrilla Tactics, Bloodseeker, Tip of the Spear, and Wildfire Infusion. That would make your kill command pretty godly, and even your Raptor Strike. But also keep in mind, they did purposely change Survival Hunters majorly from Legion for not being just strictly melee. But I do think they need some work. I'm curious to know what you guys think about the talents, anything you like, anything you don't like, anything you want majorly changed. I am curious to know in the comments below. But with that being said, let's talk about the Hunter pet changes. Now to quickly go over pet changes, which if you want to see a more in-depth guide, watch the end of my Beast Mastery video, or you can watch a separate video where I dedicated the entire video to talking about this. Both those end slates will be at the end. But essentially how it goes is that there's 57-ish, something like that, pet families. A third of each pet family will be one of these 3 specs. You cannot change them. As you can see, I cannot change my pet, my cat pet, to be Tenacity or Cunning. All cats will be Ferocity. Although with that being said, no matter your pet, even if you have a turtle, which is Tenacity, they're still going to do the exact same DPS. All Ferocity pets like my cat will have an ability called Predator's Thirst. It increases your leech and your pet's leech by 10%, and then all Ferocity pets will have something called Primal Rage, which is a heroism or Bloodlust. It does the same effect, it increases everyone's haste by 30%. And as you've probably already been able to tell, Predator's Thirst is a passive. All of the pets have a passive ability, and then Primal Rage, which is a heroism or Bloodlust, is an active ability. All the pets have an active ability that you have to activate. Now my turtle, for example, which is Tenacity, has endurance training, which increases my health and his health by 8% as long as I have him out, and then Survival of the Fittest is a 2-minute, if you see down there, or sorry, 3-minute cooldown, which reduces all of my damage and my pet's damage taken by 20% for 6 seconds. So there is an extra defensive cooldown there, and then all Cunning pets, like my bird for example, have Pathfinding, which increases my movement speed and his movement speed by 8%, and then Master's Call, which is an ability we've seen before. It removes all of my root and movement impairing effects, as well as my pets, for 4 seconds. Now 2 pets which are the same spec still have a differentiating ability. However, like my turtle pet has Shell Shield, which decreases his damage taken by 50% for 12 seconds, 1-minute cooldown, which as my Scorpion, which is also a Tenacity pet, has Deadly Sting, which is a mortal wounds. It decreases the healing that the target takes. So that's just a quick rundown of all the pet changes. And that's it for all the survival changes that have currently gone into effect in beta. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, beta did just come out. Everything is subject to change. I'll probably make an update to this video closer to Battle for Azeroth release date, which is August 14th. But anyways guys, that's the entire video. If you liked it, you can leave a like on it. Sub to the channel for more videos like this, more alpha videos, and I'll see you guys in the next video.